So couple more questions from the crowd here that I think are great. Two related to the, and I'll come to the second one here, I got to come back to. You know, you talked a lot about employees at Centro. You talked about being a great place to work. Two questions that came out. One is, what's a typical day like, and how do you figure out who are the right people to join your company?
I'll start with the second. How do I figure out who the right people are to join our company? Look, I fully buy into the idea that you hire really slow and you fire really fast. Okay? You know, the people you choose to surround yourself with is the biggest decision you will ever make, and it's so costly to unwind it, and there's so much just emotional, you know, breakage inside of that. Just, you've got to be really cautious. Don't just put butts in seats. We hire based upon character. That's the first thing we look for. You know, what's the character of an individual? And then the second thing is we ask ourselves, are they a character? And because, you know, it's just, you know, we don't like vanilla. I mean, you got to have, to me, you got to have an edge. You know, I mean, you got to have an edge. You got to be able to be idealistic. You know, you can't be dead in your mind and think about it. You got to be able to dream with the rest of us and get on the same page because we want to accomplish great things. So that's kind of what we look for. The first part of that, my typical day doesn't look the same ever. But I'll tell you this, I get maybe 2 hours of downtime in a schedule. It's jumping from meeting to meeting to meeting. It's really funny because Pat, I admire, I'm envious of you. You've got such a great social circle. I call it social currency. You have it. A lot of Matt Moog has it. You know, and I always go, I have no social currency in this city. Like I don't know anyone. You know, but it's because it's probably because I'm so focused on the company. And I'm trying to figure out a way to get out more, to just meet with aspiring entrepreneurs.
I grew up here, so that helps. You start with the people you grew up with are still here. But, you know, I think you do. I mean, you know, you have great respect in YPO, and you're the only guy in the 40s who gets invited to the under 40 YPO cocktails. They don't invite me. So they said, you know, we have the young YPO, and I'm like, YPO is supposed to stand for Young Presidents. How did I get to be the old guy in the Young Presidents?
Yeah, so it's a Young Presidents organization, which when, you know, you all get your companies to over 50 employees, right?
Yeah, 50 employees and 24 million.
Absolutely, it's the first thing you should do is join YPO, and it's called Young Presidents Organization. You get kicked out to WPO at 50 years old.
Right.
It's an amazing growth experience. But then we do have a thing called Young YPO, which we all just get together and drink our faces off.
Yeah, I never get invited. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, you're invited next time. You're invited next time.
I'm not. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, a couple other things that came up. One is something that you taught, and I talked a little bit about, but it's got a number of votes here, so I think it's interesting to ask, which is people know something about your role in the last presidential political campaign and want to know more from you about why you chose to do that and what your role was.
So, 2008. The election comes around, and politics, by the way, is my second life. So I'm going into public policy. I plan on going into politics or public service, and I know of. I don't meet Senator Obama, and I'm just so passionate about what he's doing, and so I just contacted the campaign in 2008, and I said, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I do. Here's what our company does. Actually, I don't even have said that, but I was like, how can I help? So I joined as a individual advisor from a digital media perspective back in 2008. We ended up doing business with the campaign back then. That happened. Since then, I've been a part of multiple fundraisers for different candidates. Some of you may know, I mean, I actually got to meet the president at his house this year, which was amazing.
Oh, cool.
So I do have a photograph. It was the most expensive photograph I've ever paid for in my lifetime. And then Centro. So then we handled all of the logistics for the statewide campaigns for the campaign. So when they said we need to get a campaign up in Florida or Ohio, or North Carolina, we were the folks who executed. We actually had our employees at the headquarters working out of there. So that was our role in the campaign. And looking back, he won by a pretty large margin. So I don't know if we had that much to do with it, but it's really fun to be involved in it.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So one last question as we wrap up here. I should do two, because the votes are moving up. People want to know a little more about the movie you're producing.
Oh, Jesus. The movie I'm producing, working title is called Ojibwe Point right now. It's for those of you who have ever read F. Scott Fitzgerald. There's a short story called Winter Dreams. It's been my favorite short story of my whole life. And I kind of took that as an inspiration. It's not a remake of that. It's just, it was an inspired story. And it's a little bit semi-biographical and it deals with moving from blue collar to aristocracy. It deals with how you make money. You know, Alex, the main character, makes his money through building. He's not an investment banker or a lawyer. You know, he does it through auto body repair shops. And it deals also with love in the sense that if you've ever loved someone and they don't return it, or they're like, it's like Claire's like a cat. She comes in and out of his life, plays with him his whole lifetime. And he feels that kind of, this is really fun. He feels that because Claire, he fell in love with, she was 9, he was 11. If he could possess Claire, because she was of the aristocracy, that was his stamp of, I am a success. If he could possess Claire, I'm a success. And the ending of it is about resigning love. And the idea that you never fall out of love with someone, you actually just move on. And that kind of, not to give away the ending, but that's really kind of what it deals with at the end. So
wow.
there's more depth to it, but it's been a really fun experience.
Profound.
Yeah.
That's really profound. I would have tried to write the next Old School. That's amazing. So, you know, you've been a great leader in our tech community here. I'm really, I love what you do. You're on Chicago Next with me, which is great. You know, you're doing so many great things. Take a minute for all these entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs and people interested in entrepreneurship, and talk about what you see as the challenges and the strengths of starting a company in Chicago.
So it's easier probably to talk about the strengths, because I think there's so many great strengths about Chicago.
I don't want to sound like the setup guy, so, you know.
No, it wasn't. And by the way, look, you know, I think anyone who knows me knows if I thought Chicago was a shitty place to start a company, I'd say it's a crappy place to start a company.
Nobody picked up your candid at all.
Oh, no? So Chicago, there's some big drawbacks. I mean, there are. I mean, there's great things, but there's drawbacks to it. The great things, to me, are the people. And it really does come down to that. I think people here are loyal. I think there's more loyalty. I think that there's a sense of work ethic that you just don't find anywhere else. I think there's a sense of camaraderie. I think there's a sense of Chicago has always been a city that's done big things. You know, maybe not in technology, but as a city, we've done big, big things.
That's right.
And so there's that mindset, and it feels good, it's fun, it's happy, and there's a character quotient here that I love. Now, the drawbacks to being in, the other thing, I love the location. It's almost like I feel like I sit on, I'm spatial, so I sit like on top of the United States, and I can get anywhere quickly, and that's very nice, because, you know, I want to fly cross country all the time. And then, but the drawbacks, I think, are just, and I think we're changing this. But 10 years ago, there was no lights in Chicago in tech companies. There was no respect for any tech companies in Chicago. And if Centro had been on the coasts, specifically in the valley, we'd probably, you know, have gotten, it's probably good we didn't, but we probably would have raised $150 million by now and, you know, be, you know, a lot larger than we are. We definitely would have got a lot more press. You don't get a lot of press being in Chicago.
No, I think that's, and the world hasn't figured that out. I was at dinner with a guy from Austin Ventures, and we're talking about what we're doing. He said, well, would you ever think about moving everything to Austin? And I said, why would we leave Chicago? It's really great. But, you know, he thinks of Austin. Austin is a great place. You see the same thing with venture guys in the valley. They say, the Carnegie guys, well, why don't you move out here? You should think about that. I think, you know, it's become a little bit of a best-kept secret, which I think Centro is like that in the sense that B2B companies aren't as well known because you don't use them as much. You wouldn't be familiar with them. But I think your story is a lot like Chicago's story, which is you build it in a way that's not out there in front every day that people see it, but it's all the more formidable when people do get exposed to it. It's really a great story, and I think our story in the city is going to be the same.
I think we've also got this great sense of patience. You know, we don't need to be this, you know, and I think patience and humility. We don't need to be this high-flying, you know, written up on the cover of Fast Company every other month.
That's right.
And I think, and you know what? Investors will tell me they may not make as much, you know, because you don't get that one rocket ship, but they don't lose anywhere near as much by investing. In fact, FTV, my investor, is invested in 3 companies in Chicago and 1 in Milwaukee. Wow. It's not even a huge investment fund, but they love Chicago as an investment city.
Well, I think that's right. I think the ability to build companies and the fact you saw from the Carnegie guys that really understand industries, you know, we don't, people really understand it from the inside out. Our experience in the rest of the economy is great. As Mark Andreessen said, software is eating the world. And And as it eats it, you need people who understand those industries. And 1 foot in technology, 1 foot in industry. And I think we're really well positioned for that.
Totally agree.
Well, what a great story. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. That's awesome.